High Commander Korvax stared at the battle footage for the 7th time, his translator struggling to process the impossible data streaming across his command console. "Explain to me again," he said, his voice dangerously calm, "how the Galactic Combat Academy's undefeated champion squadron just surrendered to a group of human children in the 3rd engagement round." "Sir," Junior Tactician R. Hill stammered, his skin shifting through 3 stress colors in rapid succession. "The statistical correlation is undeniable. Every successful tactical maneuver executed by the human cubs occurred within 2.3 seconds of auditory encouragement from the adult human female." Korvax pulled up the synchronized audio-visual feed. There, frame 1247. The human children's formation was collapsing under standard pincer pressure. The champion team was executing textbook encirclement protocols. Victory was mathematically certain. Then the sound hit. "Go, Tommy! You can do it, sweetie! Show them what you've got!" The human woman's voice cut through the tactical channel like a plasma charge. Frame 1251. 4 seconds later, the children's formation didn't just recover. It executed a counter-maneuver that shouldn't exist in their tactical database. The champion squadron's right flank evaporated under pressure from opponents who, by all metrics, should have been eliminated 6 moves earlier. "This is absurd," Chief Combat Psychologist Sinara said, her sensor tendrils quivering with agitation. "The human female possesses no military training. Her background check confirms she's an elementary education specialist. She teaches mathematics and basic literacy to juveniles." "Then explain this." Korvax replayed the final engagement. The champions had adapted, implementing advanced counter-tactics that had won them battles against warrior races with centuries of combat evolution. The human cubs were pinned, outmaneuvered, facing certain defeat. The human woman arrived 17 minutes late, carrying a container of steaming liquid and apologizing about something called traffic. "Go, Cubs! Let's see that teamwork. You've got this." What happened next violated 300 years of combat doctrine. The children, these cubs, exploded into coordinated action that made the champion squadron look like first-year cadets. Flanking maneuvers, tactical feints, synchronized pressure points. The champions surrendered within 90 seconds. Could it be coded language? Tactical Analysis Director Jotaro suggested, his optical implants scanning the audio files. Perhaps the encouragement phrases contain hidden tactical instructions. "We analyzed every frequency, every harmonic, every possible encryption method," R. Hill reported. "It's exactly what it appears to be. Enthusiastic vocal support. Phrases include, 'Good hustle,' 'Nice try,' 'You can do it,' and..." He checked his notes with visible confusion. "That's my superstar." Emergency protocols had brought in observers from 6 different species military commands. The viewing chamber was packed with officers whose combined combat experience exceeded 10,000 years. They watched in silence as Korvax replayed the moment that shattered the Academy's reputation. The human woman, identified as Sophia from Earth's North American education sector, was cheering with such volume that 3 different recording systems had clipped the audio. Her face displayed what human database entries called pride and joy. She was delighted by the children's performance. The cubs responded like she'd activated a weapon system. "High Commander," Sinara said carefully, "we need to consider the possibility that we're observing a phenomenon completely outside our psychological frameworks. The children lost the first 2 rounds decisively when the human female wasn't present," Jotaro added. "We have controlled data. The moment she arrived and began her vocal encouragement, their performance increased by factors our models can't accommodate." Korvax pulled up the cubs' individual profiles. Ages ranged from 7 to 9 standard years. No military training, no combat family lineage. Background check on Sophia showed she'd volunteered to supervise them during what humans called a field trip to the Academy's public demonstration facilities. A field trip. They'd treated the galaxy's premier combat training center like an educational excursion. And they'd won. "Sir, the Council is demanding answers. Rahil said quietly. 7 species have filed formal inquiries. They want to know if humans have developed some kind of battlefield morale technology. Korvax watched the footage again, frame by frame. The children weren't bigger, faster, or stronger than the champions. They weren't using superior equipment or unknown tactics. They were just trying harder, fighting with absolute conviction that they could win. Every time Sophia cheered, that conviction intensified. "Schedule an emergency analysis session," Korvax ordered. "I want Sophia and the cubs back here tomorrow. Controlled environment, full monitoring. If there's a correlation, we're going to identify it. If humans have somehow weaponized encouragement, the entire galactic military structure needs to know." He paused the footage on Sophia's face, frozen mid-cheer, her expression radiating pure, uncomplicated belief that these children could accomplish anything. 300 years of military doctrine suddenly felt very, very fragile. The observation chamber hummed with enough sensor equipment to monitor a planetary invasion. 12 species' top military analysts crowded around holographic displays, their attention fixed on the training arena below, where the human cubs were currently losing their 4th consecutive round. "Baseline performance remains consistent with initial assessment," Jotaro reported, his multiple eyes tracking the children's fumbling attempts at tactical coordination. Without the adult human, female present, their combat effectiveness registers at junior cadet level, possibly lower. Korvax didn't respond. He was watching the entrance corridor, where his security detail had confirmed Sophia's arrival approximately 3 minutes ago. She'd stopped at what humans called a coffee station. Apparently, the Academy's beverage selection wasn't adequate, and was currently apologizing to the hospitality staff about being a bit late. A bit late. The woman who'd somehow triggered a military crisis was concerned about tardiness. "Champion team is implementing standard suppression protocols," Sinara noted. "The Cubs are attempting defensive formations but lack coordinated timing. Prediction models suggest complete tactical collapse within 40 seconds. 38 seconds later, Sophia walked into the observation gallery, balancing a cup of coffee and what appeared to be a pastry. She spotted the arena viewport, and her face immediately brightened. "Oh good, they're still going. I was worried I'd miss it." She moved to the viewing area, completely ignoring the dozens of military officers staring at her. "Sorry about the wait. The line at that coffee place was ridiculous. You'd think on a space station they'd have faster service, right?" She took a sip of coffee, looked down at the arena, and cupped her free hand around her mouth. "Let's go, Cubs. Show them what you're made of." The effect was instantaneous. Tommy, the smallest cub, currently pinned behind inadequate cover, suddenly rolled left, executed a flanking maneuver that bypassed 2 champion defenders, and secured a tactical position that made 3 different tactical computers recalculate their probability matrices. "That's it, Sarah. Beautiful teamwork." Sarah, who had been retreating under pressure, reversed direction and coordinated with 2 other cubs in a pincer movement that forced the champions into reactive defense. The champions, warriors who'd trained for decades, were suddenly fighting to maintain position against 9-year-olds. "Impossible," breathed Commander Vexia from the Tarlaxian Defense Corps. "Those maneuvers require situational awareness that takes years to develop. You've got this, Michael. Trust your instincts." Michael executed a tactical feint that would have earned commendation at officer candidate level. The champions' formation cracked. The Cubs poured through the gap like they'd rehearsed it for months. They hadn't. Korvax had personally verified they'd met each other for the first time 2 days ago. "Audio analysis," Jotaro said urgently, his workstation flooding with data. "No coded frequencies, no subsonic tactical guidance. It's pure encouragement. She's literally just cheering for them." "Nice adaptation, Emma. That's creative thinking." The cub named Emma, who 30 seconds ago had been making tactical errors that would embarrass first-year students, just invented a countermaneuver that Sinara's database couldn't classify. The champions attempted 3 different response protocols. All failed. Sophia took another sip of coffee, completely oblivious to the fact that 50 of the galaxy's top military minds were staring at her in something approaching existential horror. I love how you're all supporting each other. That's real teamwork. The Cubs' coordination shifted into something that made the sensor arrays spike. They weren't just fighting as individuals anymore. They were operating as a unified tactical organism, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths, adapting in real time to the champion's responses. The champions surrendered 97 seconds after Sophia's first cheer. The observation chamber erupted in controlled chaos. Analysts shouting readings, commanders demanding explanations, computer systems struggling to model what they'd just witnessed. Sophia smiled down at the arena, gave the Cubs 2 thumbs up, and turned to find approximately 40 alien military officers staring at her. "Oh," she laughed, a bit embarrassed. "Sorry, I get really into it. Were we supposed to be quiet up here? Tommy's mom always says I'm too loud at soccer games." "Sophia," Korvax said carefully, approaching her like she might be an unexploded ordnance. "What exactly did you do just now?" She blinked, genuinely confused. "I cheered for them? They're doing great. I mean, this is only their second time doing tactical whatever you call it, and they're already holding their own against your champion team. That's amazing progress." "They weren't holding their own," Sinara said, her voice strained. "They were losing catastrophically until you began your vocal encouragement. Then they executed maneuvers that violate our training progression models." "Oh," Sophia considered this, taking another sip of coffee. "Well, yeah, they know I believe in them, so they try harder. That's pretty normal, isn't it?" "Normal." Jataro's translator struggled with his tone. "Your belief apparently unlocks tactical capabilities that our warriors trained decades to achieve." Sophia laughed. "Come on, you're exaggerating. They're just kids doing their best because someone's cheering for them. Doesn't everyone perform better when someone believes they can succeed?" The silence in the observation chamber was absolute. Korvax looked at Sinara. Sinara looked at Jataro. Jataro looked at his tactical displays, which were still trying to calculate how the Cubs had won. Nobody had an answer. The emergency session convened in the Academy's primary strategic conference chamber, a space designed to accommodate crisis planning for multi-species military coalitions. Currently, it was packed with the Galactic Psychology Corps' 7 most senior analysts, all of whom looked like they'd just watched their fundamental understanding of combat psychology catch fire. Sophia sat at the head of the table, still holding her coffee, while Korvax tried to explain why 12 of the galaxy's military powers were desperately interested in her cheering technique. "So you're saying," Sophia said slowly, "that your warriors train by being afraid of disappointing their commanders?" "Not afraid exactly," Sinara corrected, though her tendrils were knotting with what looked like stress. "Our training methodology implements structured consequence hierarchies. Warriors learn that failure results in negative outcomes, demotion, social standing reduction, resource restriction. This creates motivation to succeed." "You motivate them through fear of failure," Sophia said flatly. "Through respect for consequence," Jataro insisted. "Our doctrine has successfully trained warrior classes for 300 years across 47 species. The data is irrefutable." Sophia looked around the table at the assembled military psychologists. "And none of you ever thought to try just telling them you believe in them?" The silence was deafening. "Our psychological models," began Dr. Zalvera, the Corps' chief theorist, "are based on established hierarchical motivation frameworks. Warriors require structure, discipline, and clear consequence parameters to achieve peak performance." "Or," Sophia said, her teacher voice emerging with what the humans called polite disagreement energy, "you could try telling them they're capable and see what happens." Down in the arena, the Cubs were being interviewed by tactical assessment teams. The audio feed played through the conference chamber. "How did you execute that flanking maneuver in round 3? An analyst was asking Tommy. "I don't know, I just thought it might work, and Miss Sophia always says we should try new things even if we're not sure." But the maneuver requires understanding of spatial pressure dynamics that Miss Sophia believes we can figure stuff out, Tommy interrupted. So I figured it out. Kovacs pulled up performance data, his command interface projecting holographic comparisons. This is impossible. The Cubs' tactical processing speed increases by 47% when Sophia is present and vocalizing encouragement. Their risk assessment protocols shift from conservative to optimally aggressive. Their coordination algorithms— They're not algorithms, Sophia interrupted gently. They're children who know their teacher thinks they're amazing. But the performance increase happens because they're not afraid to fail, Sophia said. She set down her coffee and leaned forward, her expression shifting into what every human child recognized as teacher explaining something important mode. Look, when you train through fear of consequences, sure, people learn to execute correctly. But they also learn not to try anything that might fail. They stick to what's safe, what's proven, what won't get them in trouble. She gestured toward the arena. Those kids? They don't know enough to be afraid yet, and I'm never going to teach them to be. So when they're down there and they hear me cheering, they know that even if they mess up, even if they try something weird and it doesn't work, I'm still going to be proud of them for trying. That freedom, that's what lets them innovate. Innovation in combat is secondary to tactical execution, Sinara argued, but her voice carried less certainty than before. Is it? Sophia pulled up the footage of the final engagement on her personal device. Apparently humans just casually carried computers in their pockets. Watch Michael here. Your champions execute a standard containment protocol. By your doctrine, Michael should retreat to defensive position and wait for support. Instead, he does this. Michael's tactical feint played out. The champions, expecting doctrine-compliant behavior, were completely unprepared for creative problem-solving. He tried something your warriors would never attempt because your warriors have been trained that creative solutions might fail, and failure has negative consequences. My kids have been trained that creative solutions might work, and I'll be proud of them either way. Dr. Zilver's face did something that might have been the alien equivalent of a migraine. You're suggesting that our entire military training infrastructure is fundamentally flawed. I'm suggesting, Sophia said diplomatically, that maybe training people to be afraid of disappointing you makes them good at following orders, but training people to believe you'll support them no matter what makes them good at solving problems. Kovacs pulled up combat effectiveness data from the last 300 years. Graphs, charts, performance metrics. Then he pulled up the Cubs' performance data from today. The Cubs' adaptive problem-solving scores were higher. This can't be correct, Jotaro said. But he was already running verification protocols. The results confirmed. Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. Oh, good. The pizza place delivered. The kids are probably starving after all that tactical stuff. She stood up, apparently considering the emergency military psychology session concluded. Did you guys want to join us for lunch? There's plenty. She walked toward the door, leaving behind 47 species' most advanced military psychologists, staring at data that suggested everything they knew about combat training might be catastrophically wrong. Hi, Commander, Sinara said quietly. I think we need to completely reevaluate our training doctrine. Kovacs was still staring at the performance comparisons. I think, he said slowly, we need to figure out how to encourage warriors instead of intimidating them. From the arena below, they could hear Sophia's voice. Who wants pepperoni? The Cubs' enthusiastic response could probably be heard 3 decks away. The Academy's Grand Strategy Hall had hosted peace negotiations, war councils, and diplomatic summits that shaped galactic history. Today, it hosted a pizza party with 9 human children and 1 elementary school teacher who'd accidentally dismantled 3 centuries of military psychology. Sophia sat cross-legged on the floor. Apparently, humans found chairs optional, surrounded by Cubs who were alternating between eating pizza and excitedly recounting their tactical victories. Around the perimeter, 50 senior military officers stood in careful observation, taking notes like their careers depended on it. Which, Korvax reflected grimly, they probably did. "Miss Sophia," Sarah asked around a mouthful of cheese, "why are all the aliens staring at us?" "They're interested in how well you all did today," Sophia said, wiping sauce off Tommy's face with a napkin. "You impressed a lot of very important people." "We just did what you always tell us to do," Michael said. "Try our best and work together." Sinara's sensor tendrils nearly tied themselves in knots. She activated her recording interface and approached cautiously. "Sophia, may I ask you some questions about your educational methodology?" "Sure." Sophia gestured to the floor beside her. "Want some pizza? It's pretty good for space station food." Sinara settled onto the floor with visible awkwardness. Jotaro and Korvax joined, forming what had to be the galaxy's strangest military briefing circle. "When you teach children," Sinara began carefully, "what is your primary objective?" "To help them believe they can learn anything," Sophia said immediately. "Kids have this amazing capacity for growth, but only if they're not afraid to fail. My job is to make sure they know that trying and failing is better than not trying at all." "And how do you implement this philosophy in practical terms?" Sophia laughed. "I encourage them. Constantly. When they get something right, I celebrate it. When they get something wrong, I celebrate that they tried and we figure out what to learn from it. The goal is to make them feel safe enough to take risks." "Safe enough to take risks," Korvax repeated slowly. "That's a contradiction in our training frameworks." "Is it?" Sophia grabbed another pizza slice. "Think about it. When are you most creative? When you're terrified of making a mistake, or when you know that mistakes are just part of learning?" Jotaro pulled up tactical data on his interface. "Our warriors are trained to minimize mistakes through rigid protocol adherence. Creativity is considered unreliable." "And that's why the Cubs won," Sophia said simply. "Your champions were executing perfect doctrine against kids who were just trying stuff to see what worked. Every time your team did something by the book, my kids adapted, because they weren't afraid to try something weird." "But they're children," Sinara protested. "They lack the experience, the training, the neural development." "They lack the fear," Sophia interrupted gently. "You see lack of training as a weakness. I see it as freedom. They don't know what's impossible yet, so they don't limit themselves." Tommy wandered over, dragging a tablet that was showing arena footage. "Miss Sophia, can we watch the part where we won again?" "Of course, sweetie." She pulled him into a side hug while queuing up the footage. The military observers leaned in despite themselves. The final engagement played out. Sophia's cheering, the Cubs' impossible adaptation, the champion's surrender. "See that moment?" Sophia pointed. "Emma's supposed to retreat there, right? But she heard me cheer, remembered I always tell her to trust her instincts, and pushed forward instead. That's not tactics. That's confidence." "Confidence derived from your vocal encouragement," Jotaro said, his multiple eyes fixed on the screen. "Confidence derived from knowing someone believes in you unconditionally," Sophia corrected. She looked around at the assembled military leadership. "Can I ask you something? When your warriors fail at something, what happens?" "They receive corrective training," Sinara said. "Performance reviews, sometimes rank adjustment." "Punishment," Sophia translated. "And when they succeed? Recognition, advancement opportunities, increased resource allocation." "Rewards," Sophia nodded. "So your warriors perform to avoid punishment and gain rewards. They're externally motivated." "And your Cubs?" Korvax asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "They perform because they want to make me proud, because they want to prove to themselves they can do it. They're internally motivated." She ruffled Tommy's hair. "I don't give them grades or gold stars or consequences. I give them belief. And belief is a lot more powerful than you'd think." She pulled up another video on the tablet. Not arena footage, but something from Earth. A classroom full of children attempting a challenging mathematics problem. Sophia's voice on the recording: "I know this is hard, but I also know every single one of you is capable of figuring it out. Take your time. Try different approaches. I believe in you." The children in the video struggled, tried various solutions, made mistakes, tried again. Eventually, most of them solved it. "That's every day in my classroom," Sophia said. "Constant encouragement, constant belief. And you know what happens? Kids who thought they were bad at math start seeing themselves as problem solvers. Kids who were afraid to raise their hands start volunteering answers, not because I reward them or punish them, but because I've convinced them they're capable." "And this methodology," Kovacs said carefully, "you believe it could apply to military training?" Sophia met his eyes. "High Commander, I believe it could apply to anyone. Children, adults, warriors, whatever. People rise to the level of belief you have in them. If you believe they can only succeed through fear of failure, that's what you'll get. Competent execution with no innovation. But if you believe they can succeed through supported growth," she gestured at the cubs, who were now playing some kind of game with empty pizza boxes, "you get people who surprise you." The grand strategy hall was silent except for children's laughter. Sinara looked at Kovacs. "We need to run controlled trials, training cohorts using encouragement-based methodology versus traditional doctrine." "Agreed," Kovacs said, "though I suspect we already know what the results will show." Sophia stood up, brushing pizza crumbs off her pants. "Well, this has been fun, but we should probably head back. The kids have school tomorrow, and I've got spelling tests to grade." She said it like she hadn't just revolutionized galactic military training. 6 weeks later, Kovacs stood in the Academy's new Psychological Performance Development Center, formerly known as the Disciplinary Training Complex, and watched something that would have been unthinkable 2 months ago. A training instructor was praising a cadet for a failed maneuver. "Excellent attempt, Cadet Zixal," the instructor was saying, their tone remarkably similar to recordings they'd studied of Sophia's teaching style. "Your tactical reasoning was sound, and trying that flanking approach showed creative problem-solving. Let's analyze why it didn't work this time and see what we can learn." Cadet Zixal, who 6 weeks ago would have been performing remedial drills for such a failure, instead looked energized. "I think my timing was off, sir. If I'd waited 3 more seconds for the support element to position..." "Good analysis. Try it again with that adjustment." Jotaro appeared at Kovacs's side, his interface displaying performance metrics. "Preliminary results from the first cohort are conclusive. Training groups using encouragement-based methodology show 32% improvement in adaptive problem-solving, 41% improvement in tactical innovation, and..." He paused, his translator struggling with what might have been astonishment, "a 78% improvement in multi-unit coordination. Because they're not afraid to communicate unconventional ideas to each other," Kovacs said, watching another training group collaborate on a complex tactical scenario. They were debating approaches openly, suggesting modifications, building on each other's ideas without fear of consequence. It looked remarkably like Sophia's classroom videos. "The Council wants a full report," Jotaro continued. 17 species have requested methodology transfers. The Tarlaxian Defense Corps is restructuring their entire training pipeline. And the cubs, still just cubs. Jotaro's expression did something that might have been amusement. Sophia declined the Academy's offer of a permanent consulting position, said she had 23 students who needed her more than we did. Kovacs pulled up his personal messages. 3 were from various military commands requesting Sophia's contact information. 2 were from psychological research institutes wanting to study her teaching methods. 1 was from Sophia herself, sent yesterday. It was a video message. He played it. Sophia's face appeared, standing in what looked like a human elementary school classroom. Colorful drawings covered the walls, small desks arranged in clusters, a whiteboard with "Spelling Test Friday" written in cheerful letters. "Hi, Commander Kovacs." Sophia waved at the camera. "The kids wanted me to send you an update. They've been telling everyone at school about the Academy, and now half the 3rd grade wants to be space tactical specialists. When they grow up..." She laughed. "I'm not sure their parents are thrilled, but I think it's great they're aiming high." The camera panned to show the cubs, Tommy, Sarah, Michael, Emma, and the others, all waving enthusiastically. "We missed the pizza," Tommy shouted. "Tell the champions we want a rematch," Sarah added. Sophia turned the camera back to herself. "Anyway, I saw the news about the Academy implementing new training protocols. I'm really proud of you all for being willing to try something different. That takes courage, especially when you're changing something that's worked for so long." She smiled. "But that's what growth is, right? Being willing to try new things, even when you're not sure if they'll work." The video ended with Sophia giving a thumbs up and the Cubs cheering in the background. Korvax realized he was smiling. He filed the message under Essential Command Documents and returned his attention to the training floor. Sinara emerged from a tactical debrief session. Her sensor tendrils arranged in what he'd learned indicated satisfaction. "The psychological assessments are remarkable. Cadets report feeling supported rather than evaluated. Their stress hormones during training exercises have decreased by 63%. While their performance metrics have increased across all categories. The warriors are happier and more effective," Korvax summarized. "Because they're encouraged rather than threatened," Sinara agreed. "It seems so obvious in retrospect. How did we train warriors for centuries without realizing that belief unlocks potential better than fear? Because we assumed combat required breaking individuals down before building them up," Korvax said. "We thought warriors needed to fear failure to avoid it. Sophia taught us that warriors who don't fear failure are free to learn from it instead." An alert chimed on his command interface. A new message, marked priority, from the Galactic Military Coordination Council. He opened it. Subject: Formal designation: Human Sophia, Elementary Education Specialist. By unanimous council vote, Human Sophia is hereby designated as Honorary Tactical Innovation Consultant to the Galactic Combat Academy. Her contributions to military psychological methodology have fundamentally advanced multi-species combat training doctrine. She has declined monetary compensation, but accepted the following: a formal thank you letter, a year's supply of good coffee, and pizza, delivery privileges at any academy facility. Additionally, the Council formally recognizes the human educational philosophy of encouragement-based development as valid military training doctrine and recommends its implementation across all member species warrior training programs. Korvax found himself laughing, an expression he'd learned from watching Sophia's videos. The human who'd revolutionized galactic warfare just wanted coffee and pizza. Down in the training arena, an instructor was telling a struggling cadet, "I believe you can figure this out. Take your time, try different approaches. You've got this." The cadet's performance shifted immediately. More confident, more willing to experiment, more creative. Just like the Cubs. Korvax pulled up his communication interface and composed a message to Sophia. "Thank you for teaching us that belief is stronger than fear. The Academy and the galaxy is better for it. Also, the Cubs' rematch request is approved. We're installing better pizza ovens in preparation." He hit send and returned to watching the new training protocols in action. Instructors encouraging instead of intimidating. Cadets innovating instead of simply executing. Warriors learning that failure was just another form of data, not something to fear. Somewhere on Earth, a human elementary school teacher was probably grading spelling tests, completely unaware that she'd changed military history. Or maybe she knew and just considered it part of helping people believe in themselves. Korvax suspected it was the latter. His communicator chimed with Sophia's reply. A single emoji, a smiling face, and a message. "Tell the cadets I believe in them too. That's what teachers do." Korvax looked at the training floor, where warriors from a dozen species were learning to encourage each other, support each other, and believe in each other. He saved Sophia's message next to the video. Some lessons he'd learned were worth keeping forever.